Right now, a river in Texas is flowing at over 90,000% of its normal level. Not 900%, 90,000%. That's not a typo, and it's not the only river in trouble right now. From the Texas-Mexico border to North Carolina to Ohio, dozens of rivers and watersheds across the United States have exploded to catastrophic levels in the last few days. Flash flood emergencies have already forced overnight evacuations in North Carolina. Water rescues are happening in the Midwest, and forecasters say more heavy rain is on the way. Today, we're breaking down exactly which regions are in the most danger right now, why one river basin in Texas has become almost incomprehensible, and what you need to know if you're anywhere in this storm's path. No guessing, no dramatizing, just the facts, the science, and the real stakes. Drop a comment right now. Has flash flooding ever affected your area? Tell me where you were and what it looked like. If you want to be the first to know every time something major happens with Earth's weather and geology, subscribe to the channel right now. It is completely free. A thumbs up also helps enormously. Let's go for 5,000 likes on this one so the algorithm actually shows it to the people who need to see it. Thank you. Now, let's get into it. The river reading that shouldn't be real. Let's start with the number that anchors this entire story. According to Real-Time River, monitoring data tracking U.S. Geological Survey stream gauges, the Middle Nueces watershed in Texas, running through communities including Crystal City, Cotulla, and Carrizo Springs, has been recorded, flowing at approximately 90,776% of its normal level, with flows measured at around 11,600 cubic feet per second. To put that in perspective, a river running at even 500 or 600% of normal is already considered a significant flood event by hydrologists. A reading approaching 91,000% represents an almost unprecedented surge, the kind of number that reflects not just heavy rain, but the compounding effect of saturated ground, rapid runoff, and multiple rounds of storms hitting the same watershed in quick succession without enough time between them for water levels to recover. This extreme reading sits within a broader multi-week pattern of catastrophic flooding across south-central Texas that we've been tracking on this channel, dating back to the life-threatening flash flooding that struck the Texas Hill Country in mid-July. Texas Governor Greg Abbott issued a disaster declaration covering 59 counties during that earlier flooding event, specifically citing the threat of widespread property damage, injury, and loss of life. The rivers most at risk during that stretch, including the Pedernales, Guadalupe, Nueces, Frio, and San Antonio rivers, remain part of the same broader river system now producing this latest extreme surge, illustrating just how much cumulative stress an unusually wet stretch can place on a single interconnected watershed over consecutive weeks. What's happening beyond Texas? Right now, Texas isn't the only state dealing with a genuine flooding emergency this week. Flash flooding struck McKaysville, Georgia, and northeastern Surry County, North Carolina, from late on August 1st into August 2nd, prompting municipal states of emergency in both McKaysville and the town of Mount Airy. The Ararat River overflowed in Mount Airy specifically, triggering a flash flood emergency declaration, the National Weather Service's most urgent flood alert category, for northern Surry County and the surrounding area, including Pilot Mountain. Repeated heavy rainfall through the overnight hours caused water levels to rise rapidly, damaging roads and other infrastructure and prompting further north. Flash flooding struck near Empire, Ohio on August 2nd, with law enforcement reporting 1 to 3 inches of rain falling rapidly enough to flood small creeks, streams, urban areas, and low-lying roads across several communities along the Ohio River, including Weirton, Steubenville, and Toronto, Ohio. That same weather system produced severe flash flood warnings across parts of Pennsylvania and West Virginia. By August 3rd, the flooding threat had shifted toward the mid-Atlantic, with the National Weather Service issuing flash flood warnings across Mercer, Monmouth, and Middlesex counties in New Jersey, closing sections of major highways including the New Jersey Turnpike and Garden State Parkway, alongside similar warnings extending into Connecticut and New York. On August 4th, a fresh flash flood warning was issued for Dare County, North Carolina, part of the state's Outer Banks region, as additional heavy rainfall continued causing dangerous flooding on roads and in low-lying areas. Why so many regions are flooding at once? It's worth being precise about what's actually connecting these events, in the same way we always try to be on this channel. These aren't all the same storm system. Texas's extreme river levels, the Georgia-North Carolina flash flooding, the Ohio Valley flooding, and the New Jersey and North Carolina coastal flood warnings represent several distinct weather systems moving across different parts of the country within roughly the same week. What connects them isn't a single shared storm. It's a broader atmospheric pattern that meteorologists have pointed to repeatedly this summer. Unusually moist, unstable air sitting across large stretches of the country, combined with slow-moving or stalled weather systems that dump heavy rain repeatedly over the same areas rather than passing through quickly. This is the same underlying dynamic we discussed when covering the original Texas Hill Country flooding in July, where the region's thin, rocky soil and steep terrain funnel intense rainfall into fast-moving, high-volume flooding within a matter of hours. It's also consistent with a pattern climate scientists have increasingly documented in recent years. As global temperatures rise, warmer air holds more moisture, which allows individual storm systems to produce heavier rainfall totals in shorter windows than the same storms would have produced decades ago, precisely the kind of extreme, rapid onset flooding behind both Texas's record-breaking watershed readings and this week's flash flood emergencies stretching from Appalachia to the mid-Atlantic coast. Why a number like 90,000% actually matters. It's worth explaining exactly why hydrologists track percentage of normal flow rather than just raw water volume, because it's this specific metric that makes the Nueces reading so alarming to river monitoring experts. Every river has an established baseline flow rate for a given time of year, based on decades of historical measurement. Comparing current flow to that baseline, rather than looking at cubic feet per second in isolation, allows hydrologists to immediately understand how extreme a given moment is relative to what that specific river normally does, since a small creek and a major river naturally carry very different raw volumes of water even under completely normal conditions. A river running at 90,000% of normal isn't simply carrying a lot of water, it's carrying an amount of water that the surrounding watershed, its floodplains, its bridges, its low water crossings, was never designed to accommodate at any point in its recorded history. This is precisely why Texas officials have repeatedly urged residents in the affected counties to stay vigilant around rivers, creeks, and drainage areas, and why water rescues have already been required in multiple counties across the broader region. This summer, as vehicles were swept off roads after driving into water whose depth wasn't apparent from the surface, what officials are telling residents a year to right now. Across every affected state, emergency management officials have converged on the same core guidance this week. The American Red Cross has specifically urged residents in flood-prone Texas counties to heed evacuation orders immediately when issued, and not to return home until officials confirm it's safe to do so. The National Weather Service's guidance across the Ohio, New Jersey, and North Carolina flash flood warnings has repeated the same critical safety message throughout. Turn around, don't drown. Since most flood-related deaths occur when people attempt to drive through flooded roadways, often underestimating how little water it actually takes, sometimes as little as 12 to 18 inches, to sweep a vehicle off the road entirely. Officials in Mount Airy, North Carolina, and McKaysville, Georgia, specifically warned that municipal services could remain disrupted throughout the recovery period following this week's flash flooding. And Texas emergency coordinators have continued urging residents near the Nueces, Frio, and related river systems to monitor official channels closely as additional rounds of heavy rain remain possible across the same saturated ground. What happens next? The National Weather Service and state emergency management agencies across Texas, the Southeast, the Ohio Valley, and the Mid-Atlantic continue monitoring river levels and issuing updated flash flood guidance as this week's weather systems move through. In Texas specifically, hydrologists will be watching whether the Nueces Basin's extreme flow levels begin receding as rain lets up, or whether additional storms moving across already saturated ground push river levels even higher before any meaningful recovery begins. Given how many different regions are dealing with active flood warnings simultaneously this week, emergency response resources, from local fire departments to state disaster declarations, are being tested across a wider geographic footprint than a single regional flooding event would typically require. Final thought. A number like 90,776% of normal flow doesn't just describe a bad flood. It describes a river behaving in a way its own historical record has essentially never seen before, in a summer that has already produced repeated rounds of catastrophic flooding across the same stretch of Texas, layered on top of flash flood emergencies now stretching from Georgia to New Jersey within the same week. No single one of these events is connected to the others through a shared storm system, but together they illustrate something we keep returning to on this channel. Extreme rainfall events like these are becoming a more regular, more geographically widespread feature of American summers, and the gap between what a floodplain was built to handle and what it's actually being asked to handle keeps growing region by region, storm by storm. We will keep tracking this flooding crisis and every other major seismic, volcanic, and extreme weather event happening around the world right now. Subscribe so you don't miss the next update. And leave that comment below. Has flash flooding ever affected your area? Tell me where you were and what it looked like. 5,000 likes on this video. Let's go. See you in the next one.